Right now, the final act. The last debate is over, and we are officially in the home stretch. We're going to break down who won, who lost, does it really matter, and what strategy the two candidates will employ in these remaining 2 weeks. Plus, Indian Point. The future of the nuclear power plant is in question. We'll sit down with two experts on two different sides of the issue to tell us where that goes next. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French, and thank you so much for joining us this Tuesday evening, October 23rd. Last night, the closing performance in the biggest show in America right now, the race for the White House. And after the curtain fell, most agreed the president, he won the battle, but the question is, what about the war? Snap polls from several media outlets gave the president a win last night, and with most accounts by a pretty healthy margin. But the question is, what impact, if any, will it have? In today's RCP poll average, which doesn't take the debate into account, but it's a composite, things as tight as they can be here, with Romney up by literally just a half a point, meaning that at this point, even a tiny bump could and would matter. So, who won, who lost, and again, what will the impact be 2 weeks from now? Now, in case you missed it, some of the highlights from last night's debate.
We don't want another Iraq. We don't want another Afghanistan. That's not the right course for us.
A few months ago, when you were asked what's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America, you said Russia. In the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back.
Attacking me is not an agenda.
It sounded like you thought that you'd do the same things we did, but you'd say them louder, and somehow that would make a difference.
My strategy is pretty straightforward, which is to go after the bad guys, to make sure we do our very best to interrupt them, to kill them, to take them out of the picture.
We have fewer ships than we did in 1916. Well, Governor, we also have fewer horses and bayonets because the nature of our military's changed. We have these things called aircraft carriers where planes land on them. We have these ships that go underwater, nuclear submarines. And so the question is not a game of battleship where we're counting ships. Governor Romney, you keep on trying to airbrush history here.
All right, so did that 90 minutes last night really change any minds? Let's bring in our panel for this. Michael Tobman, political consultant, principal at Hudson TG. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. Chris Shays, former Republican congressman from the great state of Connecticut. One of our favorites, and our senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman. Now, the polls seem to say with some unanimity that the president did better last night. Congressman, you buy that or no?
You know, I was amazed when I heard the, analysis at the end. I thought Romney did a great job, but I was looking at Romney to say, will people be comfortable with him, and does he come across as likable? He did a Ronald Reagan last night, and I think he didn't try to win every issue. He just tried to be competent and likable.
Well, we'll get to the strategy because it was a tangible one. You didn't have to be an expert to figure this out. But Michael, my question is, listen, there was an intent here to muddle the message that the distinction between the two wasn't that great on a lot of different issues. You got that right away, and it played out for the 90 minutes. Do you think it's going to have a discernible impact on anybody that was still on the fence?
I think that those who had questions or undecided about whether or not they were truly comfortable with Governor Romney have a lot of reasons after last night's performance to decide that they are uncomfortable with him and will be voting to re-elect the president. The congressman said he did a Ronald Reagan. I think the Governor Romney was using Ronald Reagan's playbook actually from the 1980s. The world he painted a picture of doesn't exist anymore. It's much more complicated and much more dangerous and not binary. It's not a Cold War with flare-ups and hotspots and surrogate battles in different parts of the world. It's enormously complicated.
But if he didn't want to come across as bellicose, and people right now are tired of the hawks, okay? If anything, Dominic, he went after, and the few times he did go after the president, from his left. He said, you can't kill your way out of this. I mean, it was the most, you close your eyes, you didn't know, at least historically, who's who. A Democrat having a net advantage going into foreign policy in a debate unheard of on the presidential front, and then a Republican tacking from, the peacenik perspective. It was, maybe it's too inside baseball, but to me it was something. You think this is going to have a real impact? I'm not so sure.
Yes, I do. First of all, Governor Romney is no Ronald Reagan. No offense, Congressman. But number two...
And you are no Jack Kennedy.
There you go. And
right.
I'm no Jack Kennedy.
Yeah.
But number two, what Governor Romney did last night is why the American people are turned off with the political process. What does the man stand for? People watching the debate last night, I really believe in these key battleground states of Ohio are going to go, huh? I thought he was conservative. I thought everything was wrong with President Obama. And now you're telling us in the 11th hour that he's not that bad guy, and you're going to hug him and drink yourself.
Andrew, I hear Dom. I know what he's saying. But when I watched it last night, there was a few moments when the president was like, the 80s want their, I was like, it didn't come out right. It didn't sound right. People, I think, want to like the president, and when he goes there with the undecideds, I thought he did better last night. But I thought there was such an attempt, because whoever in the first debate and the second debate, I know you were making this point this morning, was more aggressive. They were the ones at the end of the night here who at least polled better. But I thought he might have pushed the accelerator down a little too hard.
I thought he might have also. There were a couple of times where he seemed to go out of his way to launch an attack on Romney. You could see it coming. It was telegraphed, and it was a little cringy watching it. It didn't seem necessary. But that's one of the downsides of being in a one-person debate, because I thought Mitt Romney basically endorsed President Obama last night, because he kept saying, you know what, that's absolutely right. I would just do it tougher. Or I would take your policy and I would do it zestier. Like. I would do it with more flavor. I would do it with cheese. I mean, it was everything that the president was offering with just a little more style.
The old joke is that President Obama hasn't found a problem he couldn't bomb his way out of. And to say that about a Democratic president is very interesting. And I think when he's attacked for that, it just reminds people it really is tough.
Now, let me ask a strategy question, this Congressman, which is, if I didn't know better, the Mitt Romney I saw last night had internal numbers that said he's ahead, because he's playing it as the front runner. He didn't take the bait when it was given. He even laid off the moderator for once here. And either his internals are saying, just stay out of trouble. We got this thing for the next 2 weeks. Or on this one, the depth is a little bit too much. The sitting president always knows more in terms of the briefings than any candidate is going to. Just stay out of harm's way. You'll be all right tonight. Am I reading too much into this?
Well, you know what? I looked at this debate in terms of my 06 debate when I was running for Congress, and I had supported going into Iraq. And we looked at poll numbers, and there was a whole group of undecided women who felt that I was maybe just a little too strong with the war. And I had said that I thought we needed to get out. So I came back and said we need to get out with a timeline. And I won that election in 06. And I know I won it because I had the support of some really undecided women in that race. I think he did the same thing. I think he did the same thing.
Had you advertised yourself as a severely conservative congressman?
I supported going into Iraq as strong as anyone.
No, I understand, but you've always carried a moderate label with you from the Republican side. Mitt Romney was selling himself in the primaries as severely conservative. Look at how conservative I am. And then he came out as the peace and love candidate?
Yeah, let's not get carried away. I think he was pretty strong about Iran. I think he was pretty strong about Russia. The comments about, oh, Mr. Obama, when you're no longer President Obama, when you're no longer when there's no longer an election, you're going to treat them differently. He got some things in there that people needed to hear.
All right. When we come back, we're going to talk some strategy. I want to remind everybody, as home is always here, we ask you to be part of our conversation. Go to Facebook and Twitter and sound off. Who do you think did better last night? And some of your responses, you can see them streaming right at the bottom of the screen. All right, we'll go to a quick break. When we come back, everybody, we do talk about in the last 14 days what we think they should and what we expect they will do. Trust me, they won't be around our neck of the woods. They're going to be in those swing states. And what is the messaging they'll be delivering? Stay with us.